and the Rent Guidelines Board will be thoroughly reviewed. Well, we just read you what the Rent Guidelines Board did to you, and we just read to you what the Department of Housing and Community Renewal is like. They should be thoroughly reviewed. I will be actively participating in this process and will continue working to improve the rent regulation system. Well, when it comes time, when my judge is assigned to me, and I pay the $75 to get him assigned to me, and I make all the copies, I guess we'll make a copy of this to go to Nicholas Spano and show him this lawsuit against the DHCR in William Street. Again, I appreciate your taking the time to express your concerns to me. If you should have any questions or need future assistance, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Nicholas Spano, State Senator. Here is CBS suing a little restaurant up in Agawam, Massachusetts. It's outside of Springfield, Massachusetts. That's where I went to college. That's also where I met my husband. He was a reporter in the Springfield, Massachusetts Union, which is now owned by Samuel Newhouse. And because the restaurant, they call themselves Rescue 9/11, 9/11 Rescue, the Rescue Bar. And you know how CBS is. We've shown you that lawsuit that we brought against CBS. And you know how these television companies are always upset because you use the CBS logo or the NBC logo or the ABC logo. But I think that's ridiculous because they give it to you on everything. They give it to you on hats. I've shown you that. Wait a second, I'll show you some CBS umbrellas. Now here are these CBS umbrellas. I have 3 of these. CBS has sent me 3 of these. See if I can get one open for you. Show you the CBS logo. There it is. Here's these CBS umbrellas. See if I can get it open for you and show you the CBS logo. There it is. Now I have 3 of those. CBS has sent me 3 of those. I ought to go out and sell them for $100 a piece. Then you had the NBC mugs and the NBC t-shirts. I showed you all those. The rest of what happened at 21 Greenridge for the week of August the 2nd, 1993 has been sent off to the printers. And so I guess I just have to tell it to you from memory. On Saturday at 4:30 p.m., Franklin went down to the cellar bin and he couldn't get the key into the lock. And I couldn't get my key into the same lock. So we had another performance of what had happened at our front door 4 weeks ago when somebody put crazy glue in the lock. Somebody had put something in this lock and had either moved all the things around inside or they had left a piece of metal in there. So the first thing to do, of course, is to call the police because of the vandalism. And Officer Coyote came. He's really very good. He's good. Out of all the policemen who have come, he's really pretty good. And so he saw a foreign object inside the lock. And the prime suspects are Roberta Walsh, because she was the prime suspect on the lock incident 4 weeks ago. And the second one would be Candy Alpucci. And we had not been down there to that lock since Monday morning. So it went from Monday morning to Saturday afternoon without our ever having seen it. And I suspect that Tuesday was the day that this was done. Now, the next thing to do was to call John Porzio, the landlord, and tell him about this vandalism. What is this, about the 15th vandalism? And so the next thing, Officer Coyote says, can't you get some bolt cutters and cut the loop of the lock that's in the loop of the hasp? And so we had no such thing, and we don't know anybody who has any such thing. So just then, a new tenant went by, Cesar, and his last name is Maniquan. And I asked him if he had bolt cutters. So he met us down cellar, and he brought over his brother Carlos. And Carlos worked over the hasp for a long time. And he used many, many tools, and he had to keep going back for tools. And finally, he did get it open. He got the hasp off the door. But of course, the lock is inside the hasp. So the hasp was no good. So I had to go out and get another hasp. And I went to one hardware store on Mamaroneck at 5:30 p.m. It was closed on Saturday. And I went to Collins on Post Road, and it was closed. And then Franklin says, go down to Rick's, who just fixed the 1980 Lincoln and fixed it all up and put in a new muffler, and it's just as quiet as can be. And so is a checkbook. They couldn't do anything because all the tools were locked up. The mechanics had gone home, so we went to Calder's and we bought a hasp. Then we went to the gasoline station, the Getty station on Terrytown Road, and we asked them if they could get this lock out of this hasp. And the man said no, all the tools were locked up. So we went to the mobile station on Terrytown Road, the one with the car wash, and we asked him, can you get this lock out of this hasp? And the man started to try. One man's name was Byron, and the other man's name was Jaime. And he worked and he worked and he worked, and he had very limited tools. And he finally put it on a grinder, you know, one of those wheels that go around, the sparks all fly. And he weakened enough so that he could finally break the loop. And he got the lock off of the hasp. Now this was a very expensive lock. It's a master lock. No wonder nobody can get it open. You know the commercials on TV. Well, it was about a $10 lock that this vandalism ruined. And so we got back, and then I went to Carlos, and Carlos came down in no time at all. He had the hasp on, and I happened to have another lock, another master lock with a set of keys. And we put that on, and the problem was resolved. You want to know how much time that took? 4.5 hours. And we called the landlord, and we told him what had happened. Now, it's Saturday night. As I say, I'm doing all this from memory because it's all written out, but it's up at the printers. At 9:43 p.m., Candy Alpucci went by, or stood at, our east bedroom window and said, Glendora, I'm home. And you understand that I didn't speak to Candy Alpucci before this, during this, or after this, and never will. And then she went around to the south bedroom window and said, Glendora, I'm home. So if you add up all of these harassments, now it's up to about 240 harassments. I naturally told the landlord, Porzio, after we got back how much time this had taken and how much it cost. The new hasp cost $6, but we'll return that because Carlos rescued the old hasp. And I haven't told Porzio yet about the most recent harassment of Candy Alpucci. Sunday afternoon, spent about an hour and a half to write the log and to address and return address and stamp 21 envelopes. Now we're going to send it to Chief Klein of the Harrison Police. And then to copy it and to fold stuff and seal it and mail it. And the cost of that is about $16. And this ends the week of August the 2nd, 1993 at 21 Greenridge Avenue, Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. Today's joke, John says, the boss is temperamental. And Ed says, that's right, 50. Today's joke, John says, the boss is temperamental. And Ed says, that's right, 50% temper and 50% mental. This is Glendora, Chat with Glendora. Everybody, how are you today? Then here's what next happened on Scott Lord. This is the United Bankruptcy Court, United States Bankruptcy Court, and this is my proof of claim. I filed a proof of claim in 1990 when the bankruptcy petition was first filed, and I filed it in February 1990. and it was a court judgment, and the date of the court judgment was April the 27th, 1988, and the date that the debt was incurred was September the 8th, 1986, that's 7 years ago. It was a court money, the basis for the claim is a court money judgment. The total amount of the claim at the time the case was filed was $4,929.17. And the date that I signed this was August the 5th, 1993. And here's the money judgment, which you saw early on when you started listening to this case of Glendora versus Scott Lord. There's the petition, the first page of the petition. And there's a calculation of the interest. Now, so where we left things before, we were all waiting for Judge Catel's decision. Okay, I will read you that. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, Glendora plaintiff against Conrad Duperstein, Robert John Hall, Andrew Maloney, Harold Jones, Neil Mann, Teresa Kavanaugh. That's 2 judges, 3 United States trustees, and a United States attorney. Richard O'Connell, a panel trustee. Joseph Derby, Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Barnes, defendants. And this is a civil case of 1993, 4263 Gerard L. Gattel memorandum decision. And you want to know the date of that, August 9th, 1993, Conrad Duperstein, Robert John Hall, Andrew Maloney, Harold Jones, Neil Mann, Teresa Kavanaugh, and Joseph Derby, the federal defendants, quote unquote, moved to dismiss this action. The action has been filed by the plaintiff pro se against them and the 4 other non-federal defendants, accusing them of negligence in the handling of a bankruptcy matter in the Eastern District of New York. It is clear that the federal defendants were acting within the scope of their employment as officers or employees of the United States. Consequently, the United States is the real party in interest with respect to the claims made against them. It is equally clear and uncontested that no administrative claim was filed against them as required by Title 28 United States Code, Section 2675A. Although the plaintiff's opposing papers claim that she has some sort of inherent constitutional right to bring such a suit, she specifies no legal support for such a claim. She also argues that the defendant should be barred from making the motion by virtue of laches. This case previously bobbed around in the wrong courts for a period of time, but that was not the doing of the federal defendants. The motion to dismiss was timely made following the removal of this case to the district court. Therefore, the federal defendant's motion is in all respects granted. This leaves the problem of what to do with respect to the action as it pertains to the 4 remaining defendants. No basis for federal jurisdiction has been alleged by them, although one of them attempted to remove the case to the bankruptcy court of this district. And the plaintiff has always maintained that she prefers proceeding in state court. Consequently, the action as it pertains to the 4 non-federal defendants, Richard O'Connell, Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Barnes, is remanded to the state court, Westchester County, where it was originally filed. So ordered, White Plains, New York, August the 9th, 1993, Gerard L. Gattel, United States District Judge. States District Court, Eastern District of New York, Glendora versus the same plaintiffs, same case number, and Honorable Gerard L. Gattel, and this is from Glendora. Please take notice that Plaintiff Glendora will resubmit her negligence suit against the 7 federal defendants, Duperstein, Hall, Maloney, Jones, Mann, Kavanaugh, and Derby. And this time she will file the administrative claims, and this time she will make the defendant the United States, and this time she will submit it to the United States District Court. Then we will see if we can get on with the issue. These negligences of 2 Eastern District bankruptcy judges, a United States attorney, 3 United States trustees, and a United States marshal. Plaintiff tells you all of this looks great on TV. 7 federal defendants who won't face their evils and atone and amend. 7 federal defendants we have who do their worst for their country instead of their best. Glendora told you all she wouldn't get fair and unbiased treatment in the federal court. Glendora told you it was stacked, rigged, premeditated, and prejudiced. The report on TV about all of this has started. It is currently running in Manhattan, uptown, downtown, and in the ladies' chamber. 300,000 subscribers. Glendora will continue to expose the machinations on TV. The public has a right to know. On a technicality, on devices, and on concoctions, justice has to step aside. Justice does not have her day in court. Nobody talks about the issue, the negligences of 7 negligent federal paycheck collectors. The courts never get a dispute resolved. It just goes on ad infinitum. There is no record of this action against Judge Hall and the other 6 federal defendants in the bankruptcy clerk's office in Westbury. Judge Hall has covered it up. The patrons coming to this clerk's office have a right to know that this action is going on and that somebody stood up to this court's negligences. Dated White Plains, New York, August the 16th, 1993. Yours truly, Glendora. Glendora TV ads, Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 10583, 914-949-9495. Well, so now we have 4 defendants back with Judge Fredman. So this is Chief Judge Fredman from Glendora. And it is a request for a conference. Plaintiff Glendora requests that the Honorable Samuel G. Fredman schedule a conference so that a trial readiness certification can be signed by Judge Fredman. Please advise Glendora as to the conference date as soon as possible. White Plains, New York, August 16, 1993, etc. Okay, now, this is almost unbelievable, but it happened. The very day that Glendora received Judge Cattell's decision, she received this motion to dismiss from Lisa Shrewsbury, attorney for Richard O'Connell, the panel trustee in this bankruptcy case. And you just can't believe it, that she states here that I can't figure out whether Glendora made a motion for default and/or summary judgment previously heard by Justice Fredman in the Supreme Court. And due to voluminous and a correspondence from the plaintiff, it is unclear whether the plaintiff has brought a second motion for default and/or summary judgment. This is dated August 9th, the very day that Judge Cattell dated his decision. Based upon the foregoing, if plaintiff has in fact moved again for default and/or summary judgment, it is respectfully requested that the court accept the enclosed copy of the affirmation in opposition previously submitted in this matter. I don't think she can really get by with that because she submitted that to Judge Fredman. And I don't see how she can submit a motion to Judge Fredman and just hand it over to Judge Cattell. I just don't think that will go. This is her memorandum in law. It's in support of motion to dismiss by defendant Richard O'Connell. Her law firm is D'Amato & Lynch at 70 Pine Street, New York, New York. They have a few lawyers. Let me show you this. I would say about 50 of them. Now, this is unbelievable that anybody would shoot this low. I shall read it to you. Preliminary statement. This memorandum of law is submitted in support of the motion to dismiss by defendant Richard O'Connell. He's the panel trustee. Statement of facts. Plaintiff Glendora sues defendant O'Connell in his capacity as trustee in the bankruptcy action. Plaintiff alleges that defendant O'Connell did not properly administer the estate of the debtor, Atlantis Lawn Sprinklers Incorporated. And how? Plaintiff Glendora, however, does not allege that she has received permission from the United States Bankruptcy Court to sue defendant O'Connell. Plaintiff's complaint must therefore be dismissed as against defendant O'Connell because such permission is a necessary prerequisite to a suit against a trustee in his official capacity. Do you understand what she's saying? She's saying, I'm the king. You can't sue the king without the king's permission. Point 1. Plaintiff has failed to comply with a jurisdictional prerequisite. A trustee in bankruptcy is an officer of the court appointing him, and courts other than the appointing court have no jurisdiction to entertain suits against a trustee without leave from the bankruptcy court for acts done in his official capacity and within his authority as an officer of the court. Title 28, United States Code A, Section 959. And she quotes Barton versus Barber, and she quotes Inree Baptist Medical Center, and Vass versus Conrad, and Inree Campbell. Plaintiff herein has not obtained leave from the bankruptcy court appointing defendant O'Connell to his position as trustee to sue defendant O'Connell for acts done in his capacity as trustee. Plaintiff's complaint, therefore, must be dismissed as against defendant O'Connell for failure to comply with his necessary jurisdictional prerequisite. Conclusion. Based upon the foregoing, it is respectfully requested that plaintiff's complaint be dismissed against defendant O'Connell New York, New York, August 4th, 1993, but it didn't get here until August the 9th, 1993. Respectfully yours, D'Amato and Lynch, Lisa Shrewsbury, attorney for defendant Richard O'Connell. And here is Glendora's answer. It's the same caption as before, even though the case has been severed. 7 and 4, 7 federal defendants and 4 other defendants. It still has to be the same caption. Plaintiff Glendora's cross motion to dismiss Richard O'Connell's motion to dismiss plaintiff's complaint. Honorable Gerard L. Cattell. Glendora, being duly sworn, deposes and says her reason for opposing Richard O'Connell's motion to dismiss Glendora's complaint against him is that this notice of motion and motion were not served on Glendora until August 9, 1993, the very day that Judge Gerard L. Cattell made his decision to dismiss Glendora's case against the 7 federal defendants and to remand Glendora's case against O'Connell, Lord, Stahl, and Barnes to the State Supreme Court. Hence, defendant O'Connell's motion to Judge Cattell is moot. Has Glendora ever told you all these people are negligent? Attorney Shrewsbury is dead wrong that she was never served a copy of Glendora's motion for default and or summary judgment. She was served it, and on July the 12th, 1993, enclosed is the affidavit of service and upon whom the papers were served. Her name is there and she was served. She simply misplaced it. Here is the affidavit of service. And here is the list of people to whom the papers went, and her name is right here, Lisa L. Shrewsbury. This is as negligent as Attorney Shrewsbury's never serving Glendora the paper she submitted to Judge Fredman back in May. Can you imagine that? She submits a paper to Judge Fredman and doesn't serve it on the plaintiff. Richard O'Connell, Esquire, should get a new lawyer, or he should go pro se. Why would it take from July the 12th to August the 9th to oppose a motion for default summary judgment? Has Glendora told you these people are negligent? Glendora's had to put up with this type of negligence for 3 3/4 years. Everybody else got their copy, Stutchen et al. Stutchen made his opposition. Anyhow, the matter is moot. Shrewsbury does not want another oral argument with Glendora after what happened in Judge Schwartzberg's court on June the 4th, 1993. Shrewsbury should know whether Glendora did or did not submit a motion to Judge Cattell for default summary judgment. Glendora is tired of people who commit negligences and run and hide and cover up and smoke screen, and who are too pusillanimous to take the rap as real Americans should and say, I didn't do it. These are judges saying this. United States trustees saying this. A United States attorney saying this. A United States marshal. A panel trustee. And the debtor. And the 2 people he committed fraudulent conveyances with. Plaintiff has proved by documentation that panel trustee O'Connell has mismanaged the estate of the bankrupt Atlantis Lawn Sprinklers, Inc. and its sole principal, Scott Lord. Now Shrewsbury, instead of dealing with O'Connell's negligence, tries to pull a fast one and say Glendora has to have the permission of the United States Bankruptcy Court to sue a negligent panel trustee. Is this the United States of America, or is this the Gestapo? Does this make sense? O'Connell tried once not to deal with his negligence and failed. This was his removal of the case to the United States Bankruptcy Court in White Plains. Judge Schwartzberg made quick work of that. Then Judge Cattell put O'Connell out of his United States District Court and back in the State Supreme Court. Now O'Connell is trying to get out of it with another concoction. You have to have the king's permission to sue him. Doesn't that whimpering show you O'Connell has a lot to hide? Now you can see why it took Shrewsbury and O'Connell, they're both lawyers. This is a lawyer representing a lawyer. From July the 12th to August the 9th to address Glendora's motion for default summary judgment. And this concoction of having the king's permission to sue him does not answer the fact that Richard O'Connell did not answer the summons with notice and complaint on time with a meritorious defense pursuant to CPLR 3211B. Have I ever told you the bankruptcy law is a monster? Its administration is abysmal, and its trustee system is abominable? O'Connell's trumped-up escape is irrelevant. His case is now in Supreme Court, State of New York, County of Westchester. It is not in the United States Bankruptcy Court. It is not in the United States District Court. Glendora got it out of there to where he so foolishly removed it. It is not in the United States District Court where Novinsky so contrivedly removed it. Glendora got it out of the United States District Court too. This medieval bankruptcy law, Title 28, United States Code A, Section 959, does not apply in state courts. It is time O'Connell stopped running away like a kid and dealt with his negligences like a man. Wherefore, plaintiff Glendora moves that defendant Richard O'Connell's motion to dismiss her complaint of gross negligences be dismissed, and the United States District Court Judge Gerardo Cotel award Glendora her costs and award Glendora any further relief this court deems just and proper. White Plains, New York, dated August 16, 1993. Glendora, Glendora, TV ads, etc. Papers, and the fourth paper I'm about to show you, Affidavit of Service. In addition to the 15 defendants, their lawyers and judges, this mailing also goes to 17 non-defendants. Some of them are creditors. Representative Jack Brooks, chairman of the House Committee on the Judiciary. Judith Kay, who's the Chief Judge of New York State. Thomas Early, who's the Assistant Clerk of the United States Bankruptcy Court in Westbury. Joseph Hurley, his boss, who is the Chief Clerk of the United States Bankruptcy Court, Eastern District. Howard Schneider, Managing Editor of Newsday. Neil Hawley, Hawley Hardware. Senator Daniel P. Moynihan. Hank Bialik. Detective Flanagan. Oh, Detective Flanagan is the 4th Precinct, Nassau County Police. Hewlett, New York. Dennis Dillon, who's the District Attorney of Nassau County. Martha Davis, who's the Acting General Counsel of the United States Department of Justice in Washington. Senator Biden, who has a lot to do with this monster bankruptcy law. Senator D'Amato, Representative Nita Lowy, Marty Klein, James Picken, Commissioner, Consumer Affairs, Nassau County. Thomas Gulata, a County Executive, Nassau County. And of course, every time we have to send out Bob Hope. Now, in addition to that, folks, I send out this log. I keep a log every day of all the things that happen, and I write it out. And I tell them today's joke. And I don't know if you can see, but that's running like something like 16 pages. And so that's the mailing, and that will go out August the 16th, 1993, Monday. I guess I better tell you today's jokes, because there aren't any jokes in here, other than the law papers they submit and their concoctions. All right, today's joke. Who was the last man to box Joe Louis? The Undertaker. Now here's a stack of legal papers, and this is just since the lawsuit that I brought against the 11 bankruptcy people. That's just that. I showed you the whole Scott Lord file. It was a file drawer long at the time I showed you, but now it's a file drawer and a third. You know everything that's on these papers because I've read it to you. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay, folks, here's what happened on Glendora versus Gannett Broder. And this would be from July the 5th, 1993, Monday, to August the 11th, 1993, Wednesday. And this is mailing number 177, and is what happened on July the 5th week. The TV report was videotaped. Chapters 44 continued, and the start of chapter 45, 1/2 hour chapters. Mailing number 176 was sent out. Editor to Fred, do you really believe what you read in the Gannett newspapers, or do you take it with a grain of salt? Fred, I can't. I'm on a low-sodium diet. July 6, 1993, Glendora tried to get a message to Sherlock. Does Gary Sherlock want to say anything to Glendora before she files a third lawsuit against him? Amy was bad. Amy was dumb to do what she did. Talked to our lawyer and hung up. Curly's Karen handled it much better. Tell me what you have to say and I will get the message to him. Watson's Paradise handled it even much better than Amy. I won't be seeing him for days, but I will try to get a message to him. Paradise asked, when are you going to file a lawsuit? And that was an intelligent question. And all of these are recorded. Glendora tried to play back Karen and Paradise to show Amy how to do it, but Amy just hung up. Isn't it abysmal to be in the communications business as Gary Sherlock is and to be so inept? That is part of what is in lawsuit 3. Every day, other than the telephone conversations, it is the same. Glendora log, the filing order, the background reading, and what to include in lawsuit 3, and the what happened log. And the time on Broder today is a half an hour. On Wednesday, another quarter of an hour's work on the lawsuit 3. On July the 8th, Thursday, Glendora left a telephone message for McCormick. Evelyn McCormick, she's an editor, and for Harris, she's also an editor. Do you want to, Merrill Harris, do you want to say anything to Glendora before she files her third lawsuit against Gannett? Glendora left a message for John Consoli to call. He's the editor and publisher, the trade magazine of the newspaper business. Amy will not even take a message. She has turned out to be the worst of them all. Son, I got 100 in school today. Dad, well, it's about time. Son, yeah, I got 50%. Yeah, I got 50 in spelling and 50 in reading. On lawsuit 3, there are a few more pages to copy at the library for exhibits and just a few more pages to read before the writing can resume. July the 9th, 1993, Friday. Each day Glendora reads 3 pages, copied, clipped, pasted, put in order until now all the reading is done. Now tomorrow is the new week and Glendora can start writing the summons with notice and complaint. Policeman, what does your speedometer say? Motorist, it is not working. Policeman, what? Your speedometer isn't working? How do you know how fast you're going? Motorist, well, at 30 miles per hour it rattles, and at 40 miles per hour it shimmies, and at 50 miles per hour it stops. July the 12th, Monday, all morning was making a motion for default judgment in the bankruptcy case, Scott Lord, where Glendora is a creditor, United States District Court. All afternoon was making a commercial for a new client in Brooklyn, going on WNBC TV. July the 13th, Tuesday, all day was catching up on telephoning. Glendora made 240 telephone calls Tuesday. 1.5 hours on Broder, logs, file, lawsuit 3. The first 10 pages of lawsuit 3 are ready to type. It is coming along fast. Ed to Bob, how are you doing? Bob, able to keep my head above water. Mother-in-law, that's because wood floats. July the 15th, 1993, Thursday, 2.5 hours on Broder, typing some of the things, lawsuit 3, editing chapter 44 and chapter 45 for TV programs number 1297, 1298, and 1299, Glendora versus Gannett Broder. July the 15th, 1993, Friday. Glendora was in federal court today watching a judge for 2 hours. He really had some interesting cases. Glendora versus Gannett Broder, chapters 42, 43, 44, 45 went to Manhattan Cable TV for the next 4 weeks. TCI is cable casting chapters 29 through 32, and Cablevision is cable casting chapters 25 through 28. A reading of the points, first 10 pages, shows a good start. The thing to do is to start typing them Sunday. Get it going. The time on Broder today is 1 hour. Gannett is at 50 and 58. Gannett is at 50 and 5/8. An amorous worm poked his head out of the ground on a bright spring day, and about 4 inches away he saw another worm. And he looked at her and he says, "You're beautiful, I want to marry you." And the other worm says, "Oh, stop it, I'm your other end." July the 17th, 1993, Saturday, to a family reunion deep into northeastern Connecticut. And that was fun. July the 18th, 1993, Sunday, you filled out the civil cover sheet for Glendora versus Gannett 3. Time on Broder this week is 7 hours. Bob and Joan are the perfect couple. He's a hypochondriac and she's a pill. And 7/12/1993 week. July the 19th, 93, Monday, Glendora did 170 telephone calls today, and there was no time for Broder. July the 20th, Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. plus an hour and a quarter. Glendora worked on the forms for the lawsuit 3 in the first page of the complaint. Bob and Joan. Cut. 1/2 hour today, Wednesday, July 21st, the logs, the file, type pages 18, 19, 20 of the complaint of lawsuit 3. A woman's work is never done, thanks to daytime television. We spent the best of the day, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. in Manhattan, editing a commercial for the new Brooklyn client, making a dub for Manhattan Cable TV, picking up 1-inch tapes from the NBC television network, and handing in the videotape to WNBC TV Channel 4. July the 22nd, 1993, Thursday, no Broder, all morning long videotaping and all afternoon editing. July the 23rd, 1993, Friday, 1 hour on Broder, typing 2 pages of the complaint. Pages 21 and 22, Glendora talked to John Consoli today and brought him up to date. In spite of what you read in the newspapers, people do not die in alphabetical order. July the 24th, 1993, Saturday. Glendora had no time to put in on Broder today. Broder has had no article in the newspaper for a long time. July the 25th, Sunday. Glendora made up for it today and did double time on Broder, typing out 4 pages of her first draft. The complaint is up to 24 pages. 8 hours were spent this week on Broder. Bob says what bothers him about the airlines is that he can't afford to fly to Rome, Paris, and Hong Kong, but his luggage has been to all 3. That's the end of July 19th week, 1993. July the 26th, Monday, no time for Broder. I had quarter of an hour on Broder. Glendora types 1 page per day on the complaint. Lawsuit 3. If you ever have a big job to do, you work on it about a half an hour a day, and it'll get done. She has to go from page 11 to 18, so that is a week from Wednesday. Was Joseph Krakowiak fired? Gannett was down to 49 5/8 last Friday. John Lewis, the largest Gannett shareholder, returned Glendora's letter rather than pay the 29-cent postage due. He's the largest shareholder in Gannett. He lives out in Winnetka. What's that fancy suburb? Winnetka. He lives out in Winnetka, outside of Chicago, Chicago's richest suburb. And he returned it because he didn't want to pay 29 cents postage. So Glendora put it in another envelope with 2 stamps and sent it back. Appellate division is now 2 years behind. Glendora versus Gannett Broder, Chapter 42 is being cablecast in Manhattan. 31 is on TCI in Westchester, and 26 is on Cablevision in Westchester. Remember, if you feel like your passport photo, you are not well enough to travel. July the 28th, 1993, Wednesday. Glendora did page 25 of the complaint. There are 8 more pages to incorporate into the complaint. The writing will be done 1 week from tomorrow, doing 1 page a day. Janine Pirro just called Glendora. I hope she wins. Charlie used to shampoo with Head and Shoulders, and now he uses Mop and Glow. July the 29th, 1993, Thursday, and July the 30th, 1993, Friday. Glendora did 4 pages of the complaint. There are just 3 left. Probably Saturdays and Sunday, and it will be done being written. And Ed says, I'll never make it in sports. In baseball, I can't hit a curved ball, but in golf, I always do. 1/2 hour yesterday, 1/2 hour today on Broder. Glendora versus Gannett Broders, Chapter 33, 34, and 36 went to TCI yesterday. Broder had an article in the newspaper Friday night. The car that was hit by the meter in Peekskill. July the 31st, 1993, Saturday. There was no time yesterday to find out where Gannett closed. Glendora did not start telephoning until 7 p.m. and everything was closed. There were only 100 calls to do yesterday. Glendora did the next to the last pages of Lawsuit 3. Tomorrow is the last page. Bob and John say they will never make it as athletes. They have sinus problems. They can't find anybody who will sign us. Bob and John say they will never make it as athletes because they have sinus problems. They can't find. They say, quote, Bob and John will never make it as athletes. They have sinus problems. They say they can't find anybody to sign us. August the 1st, 1993, Sunday, Communion. Glendora worked a half an hour on the last page of the first draft. Tomorrow, type page 26 and type page 27 of the Lawsuit 3. Then go back in and incorporate into the other pages the additions that were incorporated from the first draft. It is a paced-up job, a composing room job. Newspaper reporter. Have you lived in Eastchester all of your life? Little old lady. Not yet. The time on Broder today is a half an hour, done 8:45 a.m. before church. The time for the week is 3.5 hours. And Monday, August the 2nd, revised pages 1 and 2 of the complaint, half an hour. Tuesday, revised pages 21 and 22. An Eskimo was reading his nursery rhymes to his son as they sat in their igloo. And the father was reading. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner, and the little Eskimo boy said, Daddy, what's a corner? August the 4th, 1993, Wednesday. Pages 23, 24, and 25 were revised. Maybe tomorrow 26 and 27 get revised. If so, the writing of the complaint is over. The supervisor said to the boss, I don't know how we can get along without you around here, but tomorrow we're going to try. Thursday, no time for Broder. Friday, we finished revising the complaint, pages 26, 27, and 28. The complaint is now ready for making a master copy. The time is 1.5 hours. Ed, the boss, runs the company like one big happy family. John. Yes, he hires all of his relatives. August the 7th, 1993, Saturday. It took 1.5 hours to proofread Lawsuit 3 and to correct the typos. That is a ridiculous article that Gannett had in the newspaper about their forcing Panda Pontiac in Eastchester into involuntary bankruptcy for $20,000. Glendora is considering writing a letter to the editor about it, and it'll be interesting to watch them not print it. Insert, Glendora talked to Mr. Salzberger, who is the owner and publisher of the New York Times, Senior. His son has sort of taken over. You know the joke about this is my son who wants to start at the bottom for a few days? Anyway, Mr. Salzberger liked Glendora's joke about Tolstoy. Glendora and Franklin went to see Merrill Folsom, who was the editor of the New Rochelle Standard and was the bureau chief of the New York Times in White Plains. Charlie, boss, can I have the 28th day off? My wife and I want to celebrate our silver anniversary. The boss says, what? I got to put up with this every 25 years? GCI was selling at 50 1/8. Sunday, August the 8th. It took 1.5 hours this morning before church to make a copy of lawsuit 3 for the court and 1 for the judge. Back from church, Glendora typed the blank affidavit of service. The time embroidered today is 1.5 hours. The logs, the file. The time for the week is 7 hours, and the boss is temperamental, and the secretary says, that's right, 50% temper and 50% mental. Here's this screwy article that was in the Reporter-Dispatch that Gannett wrote about themselves taking Panda Pontiac into involuntary bankruptcy. August the 9th, 1993, Monday, while Glendora versus Gannett Broder lawsuit 3 was filed today in federal court, United States District Court, White Plains, New York, Southern District. A copy will be sent to you. It took 1.5 hours. Charlie, I never have to worry about the boss losing his temper. Ed, no, he can always find it when he needs it. August the 10th, 1993, Tuesday, Glendora went back to the United States District Court just to make sure all the papers were in the right order and to make sure that pages 6 and 8 were blank. Everything is fine. The judge is Judge Broderick. Now, it costs $120 to file a lawsuit. That's a whole lot better than Westchester County Supreme Court, where it costs $245. And it's $125 less. And when you file your lawsuit, they have a drum. And they spin this drum right away. While you're there, they do everything. They stamp the papers, they give you a number, they give you papers to read and rules to read. And then right there in front of you, the judge is picked. And so they spin this drum and they reach in. This is Julia. Boy, is she terrific. What a great person she is. And she reaches in and she takes out an envelope that's sealed and it's blank. And she opens the envelope, pulls out a slip of paper, and it said Judge Broderick. There's 3 judges there in White Plains of the Southern District. You know, this all really belongs to Manhattan, but we have this branch, so to speak, up here in White Plains. Now, let's see, where were we? The envelopes are addressed, the return addresses are on, the copies have to be made, and the service has to be done. Dick, the boss, is not doing as well as you think. The telephone in his Lincoln is a party line. Lincoln, the time on Broder today is 5.5 hours. The summons with notice and complaint were served. The print cost was $10 to print, $21 to serve, and $150 so far this lawsuit has cost. A chat with Glendora was on TV last night, and it was not about Gannett Broder, not much. The Reporter-Dispatch had one of its cruel headlines, "Click, click, he's gone," about Kay Whitmore of Kodak. I don't think that's called for. You know, the guy feels bad enough after spending his whole life at Kodak. You know, he feels badly enough about being out. The reason that he said he was out, that he didn't have the heart to fire all those people. This is so flip, this headline, and it's so insensitive. So here's another one, click, click, when is Curly gone? The Reporter-Dispatch had a story about pro se. They did not ask this pro se here. Ingracia made an anti-pro se statement. Go back to Ingracia's ruling on Glendora versus Gannett Broder, lawsuit 1. You remember that, breach of contract? Go back to Johnson's ruling, the same. It is rotten to the core. Judges are prejudiced against pro ses. And a pro se, you have every right, you have a constitutional right to defend yourself. You don't have to hire a lawyer. 6 a.m. this morning, the non-defendant envelopes, 7 defendant envelopes, had to be returned, address, a master copy had to be made for the printer, the log had to be closed, the letter to the editor opposing the Panda Pontiac article has been written. There is no time to correct typos. John loves the way the boss holds his meetings. He presents his proposals, and then he says, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say bye. The time on Broder today is 4 hours. Broder's had nothing in the paper for about 2 weeks, ending at August the 11th, 1993, Wednesday, Glendora watched the Ford trial in federal court. She was pro se. It was a $6 million discrimination suit. This black man brought it against her. It was up in Peekskill, and it was fought out here in the federal court in White Plains. Milton Hoffman, letter to the editor, reported, Dispatch 1 Gannett Drive, White Plains, New York, 10604. Gannett is sick to print that article about Gannett forcing Panda Pontiac into involuntary bankruptcy. It is self-serving. Here you say you do not have space to print all the news. You leave out half of what happens at the Harrison Town Board meetings, but you can always find space to write about Gannett newspapers. You are just trying to show people that they cannot get away with ripping off Gannett. Why is $20,000 such a big sum to Gannett when CEO Curley is making $3 million a year off the shareholders with golden parachutes? It is time you use your space to print both sides of the news, not articles about Gannett. It is narcissism. Yours truly, Glendora, Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 10583-914-949-9495. And here is lawsuit number 3, Glendora versus Gannett. The plaintiff is Glendora. The defendants are the Gannett Company Incorporated, Gannett Suburban Newspapers, John Curley, Gary Watson, Douglas McCorkindale, Gary Sherlock, and Kenneth Paulson. The cause of action is antitrust, Title 15, United States Code, Section 1. And that's the civil cover sheet. You know, the district court is so nice. You know, you go down there, you tell them you want to file a lawsuit, and they give you all the right papers. And you take them home, you read them, and you follow what they say. And you walk in and you file your lawsuit. And this was pretty good. They only had to change 2 or 3 boxes. I said that it was the basis of jurisdiction was a federal question, and citizen of this state, plaintiff, yes, and defendant, yes. And citizen of another state, incorporated or principal place of business in this state, no. Yes, well, no. Some of the defendants and the other defendants are in Arlington, Virginia. And so who's the plaintiff, and here's the defendants. And they're all Westchester County. Defendant's address unknown. The residence address is unknown. And I said, yes, this is so. Defendant's home addresses are cloistered. And it's in White Plains. I filed it in White Plains instead of Foley Square. And here's the United States District Court summons with notice in a civil action. And they give you this form too. And all you do is fill it out. You are hereby summoned and are required to file with the clerk of this court and serve upon plaintiff Glendora, Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 10583-914-949-9495, an answer to the complaint, which is herewith served upon you within 20 days after service of the summons upon you, exclusive of the day of service. If you fail to do so, judgment by default will be taken against you for the relief demanded in the complaint. In New York State, they say may be taken against you. James M. Parkinson is clerk, and Julie Coleman is that girl that I told you. So terrific. Oh, she's so good. She's so pleasant. She's so helpful. She's so interested. And there's nothing here except that to serve it, the cost was 0. They want you to put in if you paid anything to have it served, and we didn't. Now here's a case information statement addendum. This case should be classified as follows: expedited, standard, or complex, unknown at this time. Expedited means expedited. Expedited means that it will be ready for trial within 12 months of service of an answer to the complaint. Standard, I guess standard is maybe the same. And then complex is that heaven knows when it'll go to trial. Okay. So I had mine down as expedited. I thought it would be up there by 6 months. I guess that's what it is, expedited 6 months. I thought it should be for trial in 6 months. And I know Julie says you better put it in standard. That's for 12 months. And here's the Rule 9 statement. Pursuant to Rule 9 of the Southern District of New York, and to enable judges and magistrates of the court to evaluate possible disqualification or recusal, the undersigned plaintiff, Glendora Pro Se, certifies that the following are corporate parents, subsidiaries, or affiliates of that party. And I list them all there for Gannett. And then of Glendora. We have Glendora TV ads, a chat with Glendora, Glendora Cheerful Look at Life, and the Glendora Happy Book. Now, I thought the best way to do this was just to go to the book of corporate affiliations and just copy the lists of all of the things that Gannett owns. That certainly is the most accurate way to do it, don't you think? Okay, and I did it also from Dun & Bradstreet and also from Standard & Poor's. And now we're up to page 1 of the complaint. Complaint in federal court, conspiracy and restraint of trade. Title 15, United States Code, Section 1, treble damages. Title 15, United States Code, Section 15. Defendants are a corporation organized and existing under and by virtue of the laws of the state of New York, with its principal place of business located at 1 Gannett Drive, White Plains, New York, 10604, and at 1100 Wilson Boulevard, Arlington, Virginia, 22234. 703-284-6000, and is engaged in the business of collecting, assembling, and distributing news for the purposes of selling advertising and making money for its corporate officers. Distribution of news is made through interstate channels of communication as listed in the Rule 9 statement. 2. Plaintiff is a citizen of the state of New York, a reader of and an advertiser in defendant's newspapers. Plaintiff owns a business, Glendora TV Ads, which is an advertising agency specializing in television advertising. Plaintiff also has a television talk show, A Chat with Glendora, on Manhattan Cable TV, TCI Cable TV, and on Cablevision. Plaintiff has appeared on both the CBS television network Family Feud and the NBC television network Concentration. Plaintiff also has a television property, Glendora Cheerful Look at Life, which has been sponsored by Xerox, Texaco, Quaker Oats, General Foods, Polaroid, and other companies. Plaintiff is also the author of and marketer of the Glendora Happy Book. Defendants are in violation of the Clayton Antitrust Act, Section 7, on 7 counts for substantially lessening competition in the newspaper business. The venue of this court is thus established. Jurisdiction of this court is invoked under the antitrust laws of the United States of America, specifically Title 15, United States Code, Sections 2, 15, and 26, and Title 28, United States Code, Section 1337. This action is brought to the attention of the Southern Judicial District pursuant to Title 15, United States Code, Section 22. Defendants, as a result of their dominant position in the market, substantially reduced competition in the newspaper business in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties. Their acts unduly restrained, hindered, and suppressed competition in said areas. Defendants have over 50% market share of the newspaper business in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties. And I will show you substantiation of that. Here it is right here. There's the circulation of the Daily News and of the New York Times and of the New York Post and of the weeklies, and the circulation of Gannett, both daily and Sunday. Defendants have clearly been anti-competitive and have violated the federal antitrust law. Count 1, the classified advertising rates have risen unfairly since the Gannett monopoly started. Defendants have unreasonably restrained price competition, placing a classified ad as over $100 for rental of an apartment. Count 2, since lessening the competition substantially, the newsstand cost of a newspaper has risen unfairly. The Sunday paper is over $1. Count 3, because Gannett Company Incorporated operates as a monopoly in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties, defendants are not fair in printing letters to the editor. They will not print letters to the editor that are opposed to Gannett. GCI has refused to print 8 letters Glendora submitted to them. Count 4. Count 4, because of no competition, a person placing an ad has to buy the ad in all the Gannett papers in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties and pay more for the ad than it is worth to that person who wants just an ad in his hometown. The consumer has to pay for unwanted coverage. Count 5, because GCI operates as a monopoly, the newspaper does not bother to get the other side of a story. Defendants print just one side. The public is not informed of the other side. Count 6. Due to this monopolistic control over the whole area, judges are afraid of Gannett and rule in Gannett's favor to avoid retaliation by Gannett, since judges have no other forum for rebuttal if Gannett writes negatively about them. This applies to the judges' political bosses also. A person cannot get a fair trial in Westchester County against Gannett. Count 7. Defendants, because of their monopoly, do not cover the news for local residents. Plaintiff lived in Harrison, New York, Westchester County, and attended many town board meetings. Over 60% of the vital happenings at town board never made it to the newspaper, and the public was denied important town news. Indeed, the Gannett Reporter was gone at 9 p.m. before the big town fights really got started. Defendants have lessened competition greatly in news distribution in these 3 counties, count 8. Because of acting as monopoly, defendants have made the cost of display advertising out of the reach of so many people. Defendants are also in violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act. Defendants conspired how to ruin the newspaper competition in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam. Defendants' conspiracy and restraint of trade and conspiracy to monopolize has unreasonably restrained price competition and news and information competition. Defendants' attempt and conspiracy to monopolize has had a bad and negative effect on consumers, competitors, and competition. Plaintiff urges Assistant Attorney General John L. Clark in New York, in charge of the Antitrust Division, Department of Justice, to invite public comment. Plaintiff has never heard anybody say anything good about Gannett. Gannett defendants stifle free competition and open competition with newspaper classified advertising, newspaper display advertising, news coverage, and letters to the editor. This is an attempt to monopolize and is monopolizing. Plaintiff and many others have been injured by the defendants. Defendants have discriminated against plaintiff and used their power as a monopoly to injure plaintiff. Plaintiff requests triple damages and the cost of the suit. Plaintiff claims private injury as well as injury to the public as per Title 15 United States Code, Section 15. Gannett defendants are in violation of the Sherman Act, Section 7. Defendants conspired illegally and combined in restraint of trade to maintain maximum prices in the newspaper industry and to drive out of business others in the business industry. Defendants wrongfully and maliciously intended to injure and destroy the business of others in the newspaper industry, meanwhile injuring the public. Section 7. That no corporation engaged in commerce shall acquire directly or indirectly the whole or any part of the stock or other share capital, and no corporation subject to the jurisdiction of the Federal Trade Commission shall acquire the whole or any part of the assets of another corporation engaged also in commerce, where in any line of commerce in any section of the country the effect of such acquisition may be substantially to lessen competition or to tend to create a monopoly. No corporation shall acquire directly or indirectly, etc., in the line of commerce in any section of the country, substantially to lessen competition or to tend to create a monopoly. Gannett defendants did and still do this. If any common carrier shall violate this section, it shall be fined not exceeding $25,000. Gannett defendants precisely caused the following to happen in Westchester County. Essential element of violation of both the Sherman Act section prohibiting contract or combination creating restraint of trade and Clayton Act section prohibiting acquisition, which substantially lessens competition, is proof of injury to competition and relevant product market. The following information is for the Gannett defendants. Complaints, orders, and other processes of the Commissioner Board under this section may be served by anyone duly authorized by the Commissioner Board, either by delivering a copy thereof to the person to be served or to a member of the partnership, or by leaving a copy thereof at the principal office or place of business, or by registering and mailing a copy thereof addressed to such person as his principal office or place of business. We chose to do it by certified mail return receipt requested. All 7 green cards have been returned. Section 19, that any suit, action, or proceeding under the antitrust laws against a corporation may be brought not only in the judicial district where it is an inhabitant, but also in any district wherein it may be found or transacts business. That in any suit, action, or proceeding brought by or on behalf of the United States, laws may run into any other district. That wherever a corporation shall violate any of the penal provisions of the antitrust laws, such violation shall be deemed to be also that of the individual directors, that would be, and officers, Curley, that would be Sherlock and McCorkindale, or agents of such corporation, who shall have authorized, ordered, or done any of the acts constituting in whole or in part such violation. That the several district courts of the United States are hereby invested with jurisdiction to prevent and restrain violations of this act, and it shall be the duty of the several district attorneys of the United States in their respective districts, under the direction of the Attorney General, to institute proceedings in equity to prevent and restrain such violations. Section 20 of the Sherman Act mentions, quote, refuse public information peacefully obtaining or communicating information. Gannett employees in White Plains refused Glendora information on over 20 counts. Glendora was trying to find out in how many newspapers the story had appeared. In addition to the reported dispatch, employees in the library and Evelyn McCormick's office were belligerent. Defendants conspired illegally and combined in restraint of trade to maintain maximum prices in the newspaper industry and to drive out of business others in the business industry. Cut. The monopolization by the Gannett defendants is as bad as anything in 1890 when Senator John Sherman, Republican Ohio, got his act signed into law by President Benjamin Harrison against what Gannett defendants do every day, quote, restraint of trade and monopolization. Competition was to be made the rule in the United States and conduct leading to monopoly was to be outlawed. Gannett defendants have placed the power and property of the news business in the hands of a few individuals. Look at their annual report and see how CEO Curley makes about $3 million per year and almost as much when he retires or if he is fired. Gannett defendants avoid competition by combining newspapers. This results in monopoly prices, excessive profits, and financial gains for Curley et al. Again, see the annual report. It has been a history of conglomerates, mergers, and acquisitions. Gannett violates the Charter of Freedom. The Sherman Antitrust Act was supposed to be for us. As a result of defendants' monopoly, attempted monopoly, or conspiracy to monopolize the market for newspaper publishing, the public was and is compelled to pay unreasonably high prices for the news and for advertising, and was and is unable to conduct business except on the arbitrary, unlawful, and unreasonable terms dictated by the defendants. This is in violation of Title 15, United States Code, Section 2. It is a sacrilege that this monopoly that Gannett should also have the grand First Amendment privilege of freedom of the press, which they abuse badly. It is big business in the newspaper industry in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties with the economic and political power and the morals that go along with it. Consumer demand should be met by the management of news and advertising at reasonable prices. The Clayton Act prohibits undue restriction of trade and commerce. The public welfare should be advanced by making industry respond to the needs and demands of the market. In these three counties, such is woefully absent. Ann Bingaman, Assistant United States Attorney in charge of antitrust, says, quote, the whole idea of managed competition is that there will be competition out there. Take a look at the newspaper business in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam. Take a look at the newspaper business in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam. Plaintiff has also been damaged by defendant's malice. Plaintiff and the rest of the public have a common interest maintaining a free and unhampered market for the purchase of classified advertising, display advertising, a form in the letters to the editor, coverage of the news, and a fair reporting of both sides. As a result of defendant's monopoly or attempted monopoly or conspiracy, the market for newspapering, plaintiff, and the public are compelled to pay unreasonably high prices for newsstand purchase of paper, for classified, and for display advertising. Each and every act and thing alleged above to have been done by defendants, and each and every act and thing alleged above is now being done by defendants, have been done and are being done in pursuance of the unlawful combination and conspiracy of the defendants alleged above. This combination and conspiracy is a trust in violation of the Sherman Act and of the Clayton Act. Plaintiff and the public at large, similarly situated, have a common interest in maintaining a free and unhampered distribution of the news and a free and unhampered market for classified and display advertising and the conduct of trade and business in fair competition. On information and belief, defendants, unless restrained, will continue with their monopoly, attempted monopoly, or conspiracy to monopolize the marketing and distribution of news, thereby precluding plaintiffs and the public's right to a fair and competitive market in the market industry in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties. Plaintiff and the public are entitled under Title 15, United States Code, Section 26, to injunctive relief against the ongoing evils of defendants' continuation of the monopoly, attempted monopoly, or conspiracy to monopolize the marketing and distribution of the news in these counties. The monopolization by the Gannett defendants is as bad as anything. Cut. Plaintiff, therefore, requests that this court, 1, grant an injunction restraining defendants from inordinate unfairness in refusing to print letters to the editor. 2, grant an injunction restraining defendants from inordinate increases in newsstand prices. 3, grant an injunction restraining the defendants from failing to cover both sides of a story. 4, grant an injunction restraining defendants from superficial, sloppy, insufficient, irresponsible news gathering and news coverage. 5, grant an injunction restraining defendants from inordinate increases in charges for classified advertising. 6, grant an injunction restraining defendants from inordinate increases in charges for display advertising. Grant an injunction restraining defendants from compelling advertisers to pay for coverages beyond their area that they need. 8, grant an injunction restraining defendants from denying the public true and fair coverage of judicial proceedings so that judges criticized will have a forum for redress. As a direct result of defendants' monopoly or attempted monopoly or conspiracy to monopolize the market for news, as described above, plaintiff was injured to the extent of $200,000 and is entitled under Title 15 United States Code Section 15 to treble damages of $600,000 from defendants. Wherefore, plaintiff demands against the defendant that 1, judgment be entered in favor of plaintiff against defendants in the amount of $600,000, representing threefold the damages suffered by plaintiff. 2, the court allow and that the defendants be required to pay the full cost of suit incurred by plaintiff in accordance with Title 15 United States Code Section 14. 3, plaintiff be granted such other and further relief as the courts shall deem just, proper, and equitable in these circumstances. Dated White Plains, New York, August the 10th, 1993. Yours truly, Glendora. Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 914-949-9495. Subscribed and sworn to before me this 10th day of August, 1993. Mary Natoli. And here is the affidavit of service. And here is the receipt for $120 to file the lawsuit. And here is the check, $120 to file the lawsuit. And here are the receipts of the certified mail. There's 7 of those. And the green cards. And also, over at the United States District Court, 110 Post Road, 111 Post Road in White Plains, they give you instructions. These are, my judge is Judge Broderick, and these are his rules of court. And they also give you the guide to the Southern District of New York, the Civil Justice Expense and Delay Reduction Plan. And that is, well, a few days later, the right order came with a notice of settlement from the DHCR. And the please take notice of settlement that an order, judgment, I guess they've written in, of which the within is a true copy, will be presented for settlement to the Honorable Matthew F. Coppola, one of the justices of the within named court. That would be the Supreme Court of Westchester County, 111 Grove Street, Westchester, New York. And for his signature on August the 23rd, 1993 at 9:30 a.m., dated Bronx, New York, August the 9th, 1993. And this is from Lazaro, Francisco, Dennis J. Safran, Division of Housing and Community Renewal. Now, this is not truthful. This was not an Article 78 action, and the DHCR tries to make it go through the record that way. If I'd wanted an Article 78 action, as I told you many times, I would have brought an Article 78 action. This was a negligence suit, 22 negligences. And how you do an order is that you list all of the motions, all of the cross motions, all of the affidavits, all of the affirmations in opposition to, and this goes on. This was a long case, as you know. So there's page 2. And here's page 3. And here's page 4. So I took this order and I made a copy of it, and I drew a line through all of the wrong lines, all of the wrong statements about Article 78. I drew a line through their requesting $200 damages or costs or whatever. This is about how long an order has to be. This is a sensible order right here. And this was served on them on Saturday, August the 14th, the day after Friday the 13th. And I will show you a copy of my order. I changed the order all around. I didn't like the way he wrote it. It wasn't the things that Judge Capola had put in his decision at all. These are going to be mailed out to 20 people. Okay, so Frank Sinatra said I did it my way. Notice of settlement. Please take notice that an order of which the within is true copy will be presented for settlement to the Honorable Matthew F. Capola, Justice of the Supreme Court at the Courthouse, 111 Grove Street, White Plains, New York, 10601, on the 23rd day of August, 1993 at 9:30 a.m. Yours truly, Glendora. And so I changed it around and made it true to what was said in Judge Capola's decision. The defendants above named having moved this court for an order dismissing the complaint herein, and the plaintiff above named having moved this court for a default judgment, and plaintiff having moved this court to declare defendants in default for failing to settle the judgment on time, and upon reading and filing the summons with notice. And then they go through and list all of the legal papers, this page and this page, and the notice of motion, and plaintiff's affidavit in vehement protest to DHCHCR, defendant's unlawful motion to settle the order, and ordered that the motion to dismiss the complaint by the defendants herein is granted, and the complaint herein is hereby dismissed, and it is further ordered that the cross motion for default judgment is denied, and it is further ordered that the motion to declare defendants in default for failing to settle the judgment herein on time is denied, and it is further ordered that the cross motion of defendants to settle the order is granted. And I left out the thing about $200. So that's the order that I'm presenting to the judge to sign. Here, I'll show you this crossed out thing. See, I crossed out this Article 78 thing, which is a lie. And I crossed out this, that examination of the administrative reveals that there is no basis for judicial intervention. And I crossed out that plaintiff has failed as a matter of law to establish prima facie her cause of action. And then I crossed out the Article 78 again and the $200. And I enclosed this letter. Justice Matthew F. Capola. This was not an Article 78 proceeding. If I had wanted an Article 78 proceeding, I would have filed an Article 78 proceeding, as I've stated on TV. This is a negligence case, 26 negligences. Your decision did not say these things Francisco wrote in his proposed order. The things Francisco writes in the proposed order are venomous. Governor Cuomo never answered my motion to vacate and set aside for lack of prosecution. My motion was unopposed, yet you did not deal with this, nor does this proposed order. It is all political. It is like Palella, a Republican, knocking Brodsky out of the primary on a technicality, and Miller, a Democrat, putting Brodsky back into the primary. And Glendora will say so on TV. And when I appeal your decisions in order, that will be decided on what is best for the judges and for the party. Did I tell you how Did I tell you how Judge Joanne Freya came into the White Plains City Court, Small Claims Court, on June the 23rd, and she was carrying a coffee cup? I think that's kind of cute. All right, a couple of weeks went by, which is very fast for the Westchester County Supreme Court, and came this decision in order from Judge Dennis Donovan. from Judge Dennis Donovan. And I'll tell you the date of this, August the 6th. In fact, that's very fast. The motion date was July the 23rd, 93, and it was, the decision came in August the 6th of 93. So that's very fast for Westchester County Supreme Court. I have two cases that were, the return date was 60 days ago, and the judges haven't written yet. You know, a judge has to answer in 60 days. That's the law. The following papers numbered 1 to 2 read on this motion by defendant for dismissal per CPLR 3211A5 collateral estoppel and 3211A4 other actions pending, cross motion by plaintiff for default judgment. Papers numbered notice of motion 1, cross motion of motion, cross notice of motion 2. Upon the foregoing papers, it is ordered that this motion is granted as follows and the cross motion denied as moot. At common law, there is no separate cognizable cause of action for punitive damages per se. Statutory authorization for such a claim is required. Public Service Law, Section 52, which deals with the rights and obligations of, quote, shared meter, unquote, gas and electric tenants and their landlords while creating a right by either against a benefiting party to sue and recover the charges billed in a court of competent jurisdiction, does not create a right to sue on or for any associated claims for punitive damages. Plaintiff here has already had a trial in White Plains City Court on her shared meter overcharge claim and succeeded threefold, in fact, in recovering as a credit against the rent claim of the landlord. The amount of the overcharge is estimated by the utility company. That is all wrong. Even assuming a right to punitive damages, which is specifically not found, principles of collateral estoppel requiring interposition of all claims between parties, especially if reasonably related, would have required plaintiff to seek such additional damages in city court. That she has appealed the city court judgment I guess in part it is not clear if plaintiff appealed the portion relating to the trifold overcharge credit does not dilute the collateral estoppel principle of resolving all related claims between the same or similar parties in one action or proceedings. Such judicial efficiency as flows from such a concept is designed to prevent the type of multitudinous and repetitious actions being brought as is demonstrated here. Both the identity of parties and identity of issue test, as well as the full and fair opportunity test for collateral estoppel, is met here. Israel versus Wood Dawson Company, 1 New York, 2nd, 116. Even assuming some basis for a claim for the $10,000, damage is sought in the complaint for the lying, stealing, and cheating, quote unquote, claimed, and which the motion papers identify as punitive in extent and nature. The complaint is dismissed without costs in this one instance. It is not necessary to consider the alternative ground urged of other actions pending in light of the above. The cross motion for default judgment is denied as moot. Enter August 6, 1993, White Plains, New York. W. Dennis Donovan, Justice of the Supreme Court, to Glendora, pro se, Box 532, Scarsdale, to John Ornberger, attorney for the defendants, 2 Greenwich Avenue, Apartment 1L, White Plains, New York, 10605. Okay. This is Glendora 2. Governor Mario Cuomo, Dennis Donovan, JSC, Westchester County Chief Judge Judith K., Matthew Crossan, Office of Court Administration, Angelo Ingracia, Administrative Judge 9th and 10th, Defendant Lydia Gallicano, Son-in-Law Lawyer John Ornberger, Gary Casella, Grievance Committee, Gerald Stern, Commission on Judicial Conduct, Elizabeth Hubbard, Modern Courts. And here is another one, pro-landlord and anti-pro se. We have our own administrative judge in Gannett newspapers, August 6, 1993, Friday, saying about pro se. Let me show you the article first. And this is the continuation of the article. Whoops. I only showed you half of it, but then that's all Gannett ever shows you. Okay. We have our own administrative judge in Gannett newspapers, August 6, 1993, Friday, saying about pro se, quote, I try to make sure they know what they're doing. That's pro se's. Ingracia said. Quite frankly, I managed to talk them out of it most of the time. Quote, every judge has a couple of pro se's on their calendars, said Richard Farina, Law Secretary to Angelo J. Ingracia, Chief Administrative Judge of the 9th Judicial District. Leave it to Gannett. He's Chief Administrative Judge of the 9th and 10th Judicial Districts. One of the first things we learn in law school is a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client, Westchester County Judge Joseph K. West said. It's like me going to a medical doctor and he says, you've got such and such, and I say, I'm going to treat it myself. Well, to Judge West, Glendora says many people would be better off treating themselves. The same things are true of doctors as of lawyers. Rip-off, exorbitant charges, and incompetence and delays. And then these judges see all the copies of judges before and rule the same way as their pals, like ducks in a row. Nobody has the courage to stand on his own. It is as an old boys club, and, quote, we talk it over at the brown bag lunches Wednesday. Justice never has her day in court. What does White Plains City Court have to do with Judge Ruskin's Supreme Court? The defendant brought the action in White Plains City Court knowing full well the same action was in Supreme Court, but Holden ignores this. Glendora brings an action in Supreme Court, and it is an action for punitive damages that was not in White Plains Court. Again, the system is no good. Everything is on paper. There is no eye contact. Nobody can talk to anybody else. Judges cannot tell who is lying and who is telling the truth. It is like a correspondence school. A landlord makes you pay her Con Edison outside of your apartment for the tenants upstairs, and there is no punitive damages for that? What are courts for? To condone the rip-offs of greedy landlords and not to do justice unto tenants? Yes, as long as we have the million-dollar landlord lobby with huge political contributions. Has there been any difference since the medieval era? Are things any more enlightened in the state of New York, county of Westchester, the 20th century? Just answer a simple question. If one cannot find justice in the courts, where are you supposed to look for justice? You have a son-in-law lawyer who hands in a paper without buying an RGI, request for judicial intervention, $75. He is told to cure it. He does not. He lets the paper sit in the calendar clerk's bin, and he fails to answer timely, and the judge lets it go by. This is justice? Everybody has to live by the law, except landlords and judges. The law was made for everybody else, but not for them. Holden awards the son-in-law lawyer $500 and $40 disbursements, and awards Glendora $240 Con Ed, and Glendora ends up $300 in the hole. How can you call that a success? Glendora appealed that too. Glendora paid $315 for the minutes. This is another ripoff, court stenographers. It is clear Glendora appealed the whole decision and order of Holden, every part therein. Why wasn't the issue dealt with? The defendant did not answer timely. These lawsuits are not multitudinous and are not repetitious. If they had been, Glendora would not have wasted her $245 per lawsuit for each one. You think that it is fun to pay $245 for each filing? You think that it is a price? You think that is a piece of cake? They are not $35 anymore. You think sinking $3,000 in a vain search for justice is a joy? It is a ripoff, one of the worst consumer ripoffs around. The courts should be regulated. Glendora's motion was not a cross motion, it was the motion. Defendant's motion was a nothing. Defendant did not buy an RJI. Defendant did not answer the summons with notice and complaint. How can you gloss over that? As always, these decisions sound as if the judge never read the paper plaintiff submitted. The courts are no solution. On People's Court, Doug Llewellyn says if you have a dispute, don't take it into your own hands, take it to court. That is bad advice. It is not Empire State. It is not worth $245. It is, again, judges without judgment. It is superficial. And Glendora will read the papers on TV as she did with Burroughs, Nicolai, Ruskin, and Coppola, and Gracia, DePaulo, and Collins. Now, I haven't finished this letter, as you can see, but here are my notes on it. So I'm going to tell them that in God we trust is a sacrilege. A sign "In God We Trust" on the wall of every courtroom in the Westchester County Courthouse Tower, 19 floors. I'm going to tell them that the Bible in every courtroom is a sacrilege. I'm going to tell them that a judge has two faces. He has one face for the law clerk, and he has one face for a litigant. And that a judge will sign anything that a law clerk puts in front of him. That the justice in the courts is a phantom, it's a mirage, and the courts are more of an industry than they are an instrument of justice. $600, I'll tell you how it comes up to $600, folks. It's $245. Well, okay, start first. It's $170 to buy an index number, rip-off. It's $75 to buy a judge. That's the request for judicial intervention. It's $50 to appeal. No, cut. It's $50 for a notice of appeal. Tell me why a notice of appeal should cost $50. And it's $250 in the appellate division. So you add that up, that's $545, rounded off to $600. And we got how many appeals going? You know, we sunk about $3,000 in here in a futile search for justice in the courts. You get bad decisions, and you get badly executed papers, and I guess I made my point about political. And you always know what's going to happen. And the policy is to punish the innocent and exonerate the guilty. Glendora versus Walsh. Glendora versus Walsh, El Pucci and Larkin, Wall for short. 21 Greenridge Avenue. What happened the week of August the 9th, 1993? And this is mailing number 21. August the 9th, 1993, Monday, yesterday, Glendora finished all of the Wall videotaping, reading the mailings. It is done indelibly. The record is there and is public. Franklin and Glendora washed the windows in the cellar again. They are coming clean. It takes hot water and Clorox. We washed them inside and outside, all 5 of them. 7:15 a.m., the 3 Walshes came home and did not harass us. 11:38 a.m., Uncle Ozzie came by and looked in our window, the south bed window. 12:28 p.m., Ozzie left and did not look in our window. August the 10th, 1993, Tuesday, we washed the 5 cellar windows again, inside and outside. That would be the 3rd time. Some vandal scratched the Lincoln passenger side front fender with a key or a screwdriver or such, and the scratch is 7 inches long. We called the police officer. Keith Martin came. Glendora told Porzio, the owner of 21 Greenridge Avenue. Roberta Walsh's cigarette butts are all over the cellar floor and the ashes. Glendora and Franklin did not see Mary Ann today. Monday was a day of peace except for vandalizing the Lincoln. Tuesday was a day of peace. August the 11th, 1993, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Yoo-hoo, but it was a low one. 6:38 p.m. Daniel Walsh and James Walsh playing ball on the lawn. The landlord had specifically said not to do that. 7:10 p.m. both noisy up and downstairs and back playing ball on the front lawn. 7:17 p.m. Glendora closed the window. 7:34 p.m. Admiral Hornblower, Roberta, 2 blasts into our dining room window. That was nice. F copied civil harassment, the Pace Law Library, intentional tort, and order of protection. 5 hours so far this week on Wall. Ed, the supervisor, suffers from moon syndrome. Ed, the supervisor suffers from moon syndrome. What's that? He carries 1/6 of the weight he thinks he does. August the 12th, 1993, Thursday, 2¼ hours on Wall today. Preparing postcard for Walsh, sending Officer O'Donnell pages 7 and 8 of mailing number 20, what happened August 5th, 1993, Thursday, through to Saturday, the vandalism of the 2nd lock. Glendora read 3 pages of the law on civil harassment, comparative negligence, intentional tort. It mentions a type of harassment Candy Alpucci does, obscene, also what her sister does. John, I love the way the boss conducts... Cut. Thursday was a day of peace, no noise and no harassment and no vandalism. Glendora worked on getting that footage of the Mets game audience shots for August the 7th, 1993, Saturday, doubleheader. August the 13th, 1993, Friday, Roberta Walt's cigarette butts still look bad in the front yard. Glendora does not try to keep the place looking good anymore. Let it go to the dumps through the hands of the black lungs, the litter bugs, and the irresponsibles, and minds that stopped growing at 12 years old. A United States District Court judge here in White Plains has lung cancer and is in Boston for 7 weeks for those awful treatments. The front hall is dirty. We passed Daniel Walsh at 8:30 a.m. On the walk at going to work time, nothing was said. There was no harassment. 3:40 p.m. Daniel Walsh came home in his car. Instead of the plumbing company truck, he left his car on the sidewalk and had the rest of it on the front lawn. When he got the mail out of the box in the hall, he let go a volley of cussing, mentioning the name Glendora and Nut, as he took the first 2 postcards of the What Happened log for last week out of the mailbox. He threw them onto the floor in front of Glendora's door. 38 minutes later, he left the postcards on the floor. It was a day of 99% peace and would have been 100% without this assault by Daniel Walsh. August the 14th, 1993, Saturday, Glendora read 4 pages on order of protection from the New York jurisprudence. 6:38 a.m., the 2 postcards on the floor outside Glendora's door are gone. It cost 39 cents to mail each of those postcards. It cost more to mail a postcard than to mail a letter. 39 cents. The field next door looks awful with all of the wild plants slaughtered, lying in the sun, decaying. It was much better the other way. Mr. Alpucci's abandoned van is still parked here all the time and has not been moved all week. It is not right for them to crowd 2 vehicles into 1 parking space. Everybody else has just 1 parking space and 1 vehicle in that space. The two Alpucci barbecues are still an eyesore, as is the Walsh daughter bicycle abandoned in the cellar. Who was the last man to box Joe Louis? The Undertaker. 5:25 p.m., Candy Alpucci, inadmirable hornblower, blowing her car horn for no reason at all. It was harassment. She blasted her horn twice under our east bedroom window, and then as she pulled her car out of the driveway, she stopped her car under our south bedroom window and maliciously, designedly, and willfully blasted her car horn another 4 times. Now, you understand, nothing was said to Alpucci before that, during that, or after that. It's just out of the blue, unprovoked. Glendora called the police and had a report made of this harassment. This is harassment number 239. The police officer was here from 5:40 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. Glendora requested the complaint go to the district attorney. Glendora asked about an order of protection so that Candy Alpucci can be arrested for this. Time on Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin today is 1/2 hour. The time on Sunday is 2 hours. The time for the week is 9 3/4 hours. And Paul says a mind is a wonderful thing. And his mother-in-law says, yes, everybody should have one. This log was mailed to 21 people this week on postcards. Hi there, everybody. Now, what happened on Scott Lord the week of August the 16th, 1993? Scott Lord did pay the $2,000 cure fee. All of his payments are up to date. His next payment is until August 15th. It cost $70 to mail and to print the notice to Gattell that Glendora would file a federal tort claims administrative claim, to ask Judge Fredman for a conference, and to answer the Shrewsbury-O'Connell motion to dismiss my action against the people in the bankruptcy who were negligent, and to mail the What Happened log. That cost $70. And Richard O'Connell submitted a very well-written application to Judge Hall, the bankruptcy judge in the Eastern District in Westbury, Long Island, for approval of a new stipulation settling and compromising the adversary proceeding and judgment against Scott Lord. And he says, please take notice that Richard E. O'Connell, the trustee, Chapter 7 trustee of Atlantis Lawn Sprinklers Incorporated, has filed a motion and application dated August the 12th, 1993, seeking, pursuant to some federal rule, approval of a stipulation of settlement with Scott Lord, dated July 19th, 1993, and this is called the new stipulation. And to replace the old stipulation, which was December 21st, 1992, upon payment by Scott Lord of a cure fee of $2,000. Remember, he had to pay that cure fee because he defaulted in his, let's see, May, June, and July payments. A copy of the new stipulation is annexed as an exhibit to the trustee's application. A copy of the application, not including the exhibits thereto, is annexed to this notice. The complete application will be on file in the office of the clerk, United States Bankruptcy Court, 1635 Privado Road, Westbury, New York. It's out near Fortunos. It's out near the Roosevelt Field, and may be reviewed by any interested party during normal business hours and near the Motor Vehicle Department. In addition, any party desiring a copy of the complete application may obtain a copy from the trustee, and a hearing on the trustee's application will be held before the Honorable Robert John Hall, United States Bankruptcy Judge. He's one of the defendants in my lawsuit. In his courtroom at the United States Bankruptcy Court, 1635 Privado Road, Westbury, New York, on October 5th, 1993 at 9:30 a.m. I will be there. It probably won't be heard until 11:30 a.m. Objections to the proposed settlement, if any, must be in writing, must set forth the basis thereof, and must be filed in the office of the Clerk, United States Bankruptcy Court, at the address given above on October 1st, 1993. Well, now, I just might not object to this. And this page repeats all that you've listened to above. I am the Chapter 7 trustee of Atlantis Lawn Sprinklers Incorporated, having been appointed on or before February 5th, 1990. I make this application for leave to withdraw the trustee's rescission of a prior stipulation. The rescission was because Scott Lord defaulted on 3 months' payments. And including without limitation the bankruptcy estate's judgment against Scott Lord in the amount of $55,000. That's called the judgment, and he settled it for the sum of $12,000. I oppose that heavily, as you know, because to me there's a big difference between $55,000 and $12,000 if you're a creditor. And that was to have been paid in 11 monthly installments between December 1992 and October 1993. On June 10, 1992, this court entered the judgment on default in the amount of $55,000 against Scott Lord and in favor of the trustee. On December 21, 1992, Lord and the trustee entered into a stipulation of settlement. Now that's the old stipulation, which provided in pertinent part that Lord would pay to the trustee the sum of $12,000 over the course of 11 months, commencing on December the 3rd, 1992, as follows. 5 payments of $1,000 each to be made on the 3rd day of December, January, September, and October. 2 payments of $500 each to be made on the 3rd day of February and March 1993, and 4 payments of $1,500 each to be made on the 3rd day of May, June, July, and August 1993. Each payment would be deemed timely if received by the trustee on or before the 10th day of the month. Provided that Lord made full payment of $12,000 to the trustee pursuant to the terms of the stipulation, then the trustee would deliver to Lord within 20 days after receipt of full payment a satisfaction of the judgment and general release, and Lord would deliver to the trustee a corresponding general release. In the event that Lord defaulted in the payment of any settlement installment, then Scott Lord would be entitled to cure such default by making such payment to the trustee by certified check, together with a penalty of $200 not later than 30 days after due date. In the event that Scott Lord defaulted in the payment of any settlement installment and failed to cure such default, then the trustee would be entitled to rescind the stipulation by giving written notice of such rescission to Scott Lord by regular mail addressed to Lord at 3208 Ocean Harbor Drive, Oceanside, New York, 11572. Such with a copy to Norman Janowitz, Esquire, attorney for Lord, at the address set forth below. Upon the mailing of such notice, the trustee would be free to proceed with proceedings to collect the judgment That would be the whole amount of $55,000, except that Lord would be entitled to credit for all payments made. Upon the trustee's application made upon due notice to creditors, this court entered an order dated February 17, 1993, authorizing the trustee to settle and compromise with Lord, quote, upon the terms and conditions set forth in the old stipulation between December 21st, 1992 and May 4th, 1993. Lord paid a total of $5,500 to the trustee, representing installments due for the months December 1992 through May 1993. On June 3rd, 1993, Lord defaulted in the payment of $1,500 due to the trustee and failed to cure such default within 30 days. On July 6, 1993, pursuant to paragraph 7 of the old stipulation, the trustee rescinded the old stipulation and gave due notice of such rescission to Lord by letter dated July 6, 1993. On July 9, 1993, the trustee filed an income execution against Scott Lord with the sheriff of Nassau County. Scott Lord has represented to the trustee that his default was inadvertent and was caused in part by preoccupation arising out of the recent death of his brother on March 22, 1993, as well as a levy placed by the Internal Revenue Service against his bank account, in which he had placed funds in the amount of $1,300 on or about June 20th, 1993. Scott Lord has requested that the trustee withdraw such rescission and has offered, in consideration of such withdrawal, to pay, in addition, the amounts due for June, July, and August, a cure fee of $2,000. The trustee, subject to the approval of this court, has agreed to withdraw this rescission, and the trustee and Lord have entered into a stipulation of settlement dated July 19, 1993, and that's the new stipulation, embodying the parties' agreement to reinstate the old stipulation upon Scott Lord's payment on or before August 15, 1993 of the $2,000 cure fee, plus his payment of June, July, and August installments in the amount of $1,500 each. As of the date of his application, Scott Lord has paid a total of $4,500 to the trustee under the new stipulation, representing installments due for June, July, and August. And the $2,000 cure fee remains due and payable to the trustee on or before August 15, 1993. Well, he has paid the $2,000. Scott Lord has advised the trustee and has made a sworn representation in the new stipulation that his financial circumstances as set forth in paragraph 2 of the old stipulation and in the affidavit of net worth annexed thereto have not changed materially since the date of the old stipulation. Lord has acknowledged that the trustee relies on the representation set forth in this paragraph in entering into the new stipulation and withdrawing rescission of the old stipulation. The standards applicable to a settlement by a bankruptcy trustee have been discussed by both the Supreme Court and the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, I don't think you have to hear all that. Now, let's see what's on the next page. It's the ending. In its petition, the debtor scheduled tax liabilities in an unknown amount from tax year 1988 and general unsecured claims of approximately $108,000. When taken together with the $5,000 received from the tri-state settlement, the $14,000 to be paid by Scott Lord will now yield an estate total of $19,000, an increase of $2,000 or approximately 12%. This increase in estate assets will increase the likelihood of a distribution to general unsecured creditors. Wherefore, the trustee respectfully requests that the court approve the new stipulation with Lord and authorize the trustee to withdraw his rescission of the old stipulation. And that's dated Whitestone, New York, August the 12th, 1993. Yostin O'Connell, attorneys for the trustee, by Richard O'Connell, a member of the firm, 2444 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Whitestone, New York, 11357, 718-767-6400. And the rest of this is the new stipulation. And it pretty much repeats what you've heard. And I think that there was an attempt made, or certainly it looked like an attempt made, to keep to keep it unknown that there were these defaults by Scott Lord. And I kept calling on the phone and kept calling on the phone, and all of my questions were dodged in O'Connell's office, and very flimsy reasons and excuses and attempts to divert the inquiries, and excuses not to answer. And also in the United States Assistant Trustee's office, Teresa Kavanaugh, they would not come up with the information. They would say that he paid so much, but they wouldn't answer the question directly, which was, are Scott Lord's payments current? See, they weren't. And they were trying to keep that, or at least they were trying to keep me from knowing that. Okay. And the rest, I think you, this is a picture of it, but I think you know already what the rest is. And this is stipulation is subject to the approval of the United States Bankruptcy Court. The trustee agrees to make applications for approval upon due notice to creditors, that's what you just heard, within 20 days after his receipt of the stipulation, fully executed by Scott Lord. In the event that the court declines to approve the stipulation, then the party shall revert to the status quo ante. I guess that would mean they'd revert to $55,000. And this is signed by Scott Lord, by Richard O'Connell, and by Norman Janowitz. And the date of this signature is the 20th of July, 1993. Now, Shrewsbury, remember she made that motion to Judge Guttell on the very day that Judge Guttell made his decision. So that was rendered moot, and you remember my answer to that. So she turns around and she makes the same motion now to Judge Fredman. And the return date that she gives on this is September the 13th, and she wants 7 days to answer any paper that I write in opposition to it. Okay, I'll just tell you briefly what her motion is to try to get my action against O'Connell dismissed, my negligent action against O'Connell. She calls up a law here. That's her first page, and this is the second page. And the law that she quotes is the Title 28, the United States Code A, Section 959, that you need the permission of the bankruptcy court to sue anybody. And she says that I have not received permission from the United States Bankruptcy Court to sue defendant O'Connell. Well, this just doesn't sound right to you. This is the old thing about you can't sue the king unless you have the king's permission to sue him. Yeah, well, I'm going to read you something about that. The plaintiff herein has not obtained leave from the bankruptcy court appointing defendant O'Connell to his position as trustee to sue defendant O'Connell for acts done in his capacity as trustee. And so therefore my complaint should be dismissed. All right, now we will look up that rule and find out if the rule is still good. And she cites a few cases, and we'll look up those cases and see if they really apply to this situation. Here's what I have to tell you about that. The Federal Tort Claims Act says that under a long-established rule, an action cannot be maintained against the sovereign without its consent. Accordingly, in the absence of a specific provision admitting liability, in this case they're talking about the United States, is not liable for injuries arising from the negligence or other tortious conduct of any of its officers, agents, or servants, even though committed in the performance of their duties, and even though the allegedly wrongful acts were performed for the benefit of the public. With the enactment of the Federal Tort Claims Act, Congress provided a comprehensive remedy against the United States for personal injury, death or property damage resulting from the negligent or wrongful acts or omissions of federal employees while acting within the scope of their office or employment. Richard O'Connell may not be a federal employee, but he's certainly working for the United States Bankruptcy Court. He is certainly an agent. Okay, let's go on. The Federal Tort Claims Act, Title 28 United States Code S, Section 1346B, 2671 to 2680, gives to the United States District Courts, that's where Judge Cattell is, exclusive jurisdiction of civil actions on claims against the United States for money damages. That's how come they were able to remove my case from the Westchester County Supreme Court for the 7 federal defendants over to the United States District Court, Judge Cattell. That's how come they were able to do that. For injury or loss of property or personal injury, and under that comes my negligence claims, that they personally injured me with their negligence. By the negligent or wrongful act or omission of any government employee while acting within the scope of his office or employment under circumstances where the United States, if a private person, would be liable to the claimant in accordance with the law of the place where the act or omission occurred. Now, in passing the act, Congress intended to compensate the victims of negligence, in this case it would be myself, in the conduct of governmental activities in circumstances in which a private person would be liable. In other words, if you could sue a private person for this negligence, you can also sue the United States for this negligence. Rather than leave just treatment to the caprice and legislative burden of individual private laws and to eliminate the burden on Congress of investigating and passing on private bills seeking individual relief. So the Federal Tort Claims Act, it has been observed, was not patterned to operate with complete independence from the principles developed by the common law and refined by statutes and judicial decisions. See, the law comes from 3 places. It's the common law that's gone on for years and years and years, may never have been written down, and the statutes, that's like the CPLR, and judicial decisions. That's the case law. That's the decisions that judges had made, but was designed to build on the legal relationships formulated by the states. Okay. So I think that the Federal Tort Claims Act negated what O'Connell and Shrewsbury are trying to pull off here. He is an agent of the United States. He did commit negligence during his official acts for the United States, and therefore he can be sued under the Federal Tort Claims Act. So I don't believe this stuff that you can't sue the king unless you have the king's permission. That's just not true anymore. So I haven't got the case law all written out and everything on that, but that's what I'm going to do next, and you'll probably hear about that next week. You'll probably hear my paper next week on that. In the meantime, as far as Cattell goes, the Federal Tort Claims Act has exceptions, and I'm going to try to look into those and see any of these exceptions apply so that Judge Cattell can take care of this case without us going to the Federal Tort Claims Act. Hello, Katie. Come on in. Well, about the only thing that happened the week of August the 16th, 1993, on Glendora versus Gannett Broder et al., is that I talked to John H. Clark, who is an attorney for the United States Department of Justice down in Foley Square, and he had received a copy of my complaint about the antitrust with Gannett, and he said, we are trying to decide whether we're going to do our own separate investigation of Gannett for antitrust. And I asked how long did that take, and he says, oh, it doesn't take so long. And I says, well, what are you talking about? It'll take you a day to decide, a week to decide, a decade? He says, no, not a decade. And so that's an action that's going against Gannett that I didn't know would happen. We talked to him on the phone to find out how you file this action against this antitrust action. And he asked 3-4 times for a name and for a telephone number. And then when we told him that we'd handed in the complaint and started the lawsuit, this is lawsuit number 3, he asked for a copy of it. And so we just sent it down, thinking that was a nice thing to do because he asked for it. And it turned out that they may or may not make an investigation. I get John H. Clark mixed up with John W. Clark, who is an assistant attorney general or an assistant U.S. attorney or something in Washington, D.C. In the antitrust division. And he's prosecuted a lot of antitrust cases. One of the biggest ones was that comb binding company, General Binding Corporation and Gestetner. They had a monopoly on bindings, and I think they still do have a monopoly, because when you go to Staples and you ask for a heat binding, a thermal binding, which I think is the best binding there is, you know, it's a strip right down the back for a binding, and you just put the papers in there, and the heat and the glue come up and they glue the papers on, and it makes the best binding there is because it's flat. And Staples won't give it to me. They don't have it. They used to have it. So I think there's still some antitrust action going on there. Another thing that happened is that I asked Milton Hoffman if he was going to print the letter to the editor. I wrote him about Gannett's narcissism, you know, about printing stories about Gannett. Remember, they printed the story that through Robert Brinton, their lawyer, they were going to bring an involuntary bankruptcy on Pontiac for $20,000 unpaid advertising.